to the stage is the king of crazy. Let's put our hands together and welcome the king of crazy, Keon Hayes, and hanging with the Hazes.
What's up, fam?
Yeah!
Show you right.
That's right. Give it up for my main man. Now let's get into this.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is KZ Keon, and I'm going to explain to you the difference between national parks, state parks, and independent commercial camping, and how each benefits one another. Because in a way that they do, but it's kind of complicated, and I'm going to break it down. So with that being said, let's get into the national park scene first. So a national park is a congressionally designed protected area operated by the National Park Service. And the United States of America has 63 of them throughout the country. Now, the National Park Service is under the Department of the Interior, and they are designated for their natural beauty, unique geological features, diverse ecosystems, and recreational opportunity, which is what we want to talk about, which is camping in the national parks. Now, the very first national park was Yellowstone. Now, Yellowstone National Park was a national park signed into law by President Ulysses S. Grant in 1872. Now, the national park system offers a variety of camping opportunities, provided you are willing to travel to them if you're on the East Coast, because most of them are on the west side of the Mississippi. And they do offer an elegance that most parks don't have. Now, the one thing about national parks, I will tell you, is that their infrastructure is old. Now, what does that mean for the everyday camper? It means that if you camp in anything greater than 32 feet, your likelihood of getting a campsite that you can fit in and getting into a park that you can turn drops to about 50%. So 32 feet and less, I'm going to say you can go to all of them. From 33 feet to about 37 feet, you lose about 60%. And then anything greater than that, you pretty much are down to about 20% of the parks. And again, you have to remember a lot of these parks were built, as far as the campgrounds go, were built in the 50s, which meant they didn't have RVs that size. So big fifth wheels and big Class A's, they ain't getting in there. So keep that in mind when you do purchase your unit. National parks are somewhat limited to size. However, that is changing. And as the money gets funneled into the Department of the Interior and the National Park Services, those amenities are being upgraded daily. A lot of them do have national monuments on hand, so keep that in mind. And 8 of the national parks, including 6 that are in Alaska, they are paired with a national preserve, which has a lot of protections for ecosystems and animal refuge. So keep that in mind as well. Now, pricing in the United States national park systems typically range from about $5 a night into some of the lesser populated ones to about $30 a night for a standard campsite. And those variations depend on the park, the particular campground, and the season specifically, with some sites potentially costing significantly more for larger groups and premium locations. Always expect to pay slightly more for RV sites with any type of hookups. So keep that in mind as well. One other thing to keep in mind when you start talking about national parks, you have to pay to get in them because they make their money off of parking and visitor fees and things like that. So if you have visitors coming, like family and all that good stuff, you might want to let them know ahead of time, hey, look, be prepared to pony up a couple of bucks, especially if you're from out of state, to get into the national parks. And that's how they make their money. I mean, it just is what it is. You're not going to be able to get around that. Now, a lot of that you see more in your state parks, which we're about to get into next. However, there is typically some value in it. So nevertheless, it's a good option if you're trying to camp on the cheap and you're in the area and you do want to unplug and get away, because chances are you're not going to get cell phone service either. Now, state parks is just what the name implies. It's a park or protected area managed by at the subnational level within those nations which use state as its political subdivision. Now, state parks are typically established by the state to preserve a location on account of its natural beauty, historic interests, or the recreation potential. And again, we are talking about camping. Now, a lot of your state parks do have significant areas for camping. However, with your state parks, there is a lot of need for infrastructure development, very similar to national parks, as a lot of them don't have hookups. And then the ones that do have hookups, specifically in the state of Maryland, will typically only have water at the site and electric. Now, for those who are looking for state parks that have water, electric, and sewer, your states that typically have a better infrastructure with that are going to be Delaware, North Carolina, a lot in South Carolina and Florida if you're on this side of the Mississippi River. Now, I'm not exactly sure how it is down in Alabama and Mississippi, but I would suggest that they are far ahead when it comes to that type of infrastructure than you will find up in the Maryland neck of the woods. Pennsylvania is doing better with their upgrades. And then you have places like West Virginia, Ohio, New York, and Vermont, I believe, that are a little bit behind the curve. But nevertheless, your state parks are run by the state, and they typically do offer a lot of amenity when it comes to the size of the unit that you can come in with. Now, your state parks, because they cater to the state, they typically know what type of units most people have, and they will make accommodations for that. Now, the average state park in Maryland can take 40 feet, no problem. Now, once you get up to 45 feet, you do get limited, but most of the state parks in the Mid-Atlantic area and the Southeast, all of them are able to accept 45-foot rigs and things like that. So you'll never have a problem getting in. Again, your biggest issue is going to be able to find sewage in some places. And if they don't offer sewer at the site, you are always going to find some type of dump station. Just be prepared for long lines on Sunday when everybody is leaving. And I would suggest that if you're able to, hold your waste until you get to maybe a rest stop or a Flying J, somewhere like that, where you can just have some peace and some time where you can clean your tanks and all of that if you're unable to do it at home. Now, another thing about state parks that we like is that a lot of them offer basic things to do, like swimming. So they'll have like a swimming pool or some type of river, pool, lagoon, some type of pond where you can either do some fishing, some kayaking, things like that. Whereas a lot of your national parks are more for scenic views and things like that. And I would not get in the water or suggest it, because the likelihood of you running from a bear, wolf, or some other type of creature that is an apex predator is much greater. Now, that also being said, it's not saying that you don't have to watch out for those things in state parks, because they do have their plethora of venomous snakes, other type of rodents and animals. And if you're in Florida, you will come across a gator or two in the wrong place. So you do have to be vigilant when it comes to that type of thing. But again, your national parks, more so bears, wolves, lions, tigers, and bears, and then your snakes, gators, and spiders that will kill you in your state parks. State parks typically are going to run you anywhere from $25 on average, maybe to about $50 or $60 if they have full hookups. And again, you will pay for those full hookups because that infrastructure is expensive and it is time consuming and costly for them to upgrade that. They have to take sites down for significant time, and somebody has to pay for that lost revenue. You know who that somebody is? You and me. That's how it goes. Welcome to America. So that being said, your state parks are centrally located, typically right outside of most urban areas and cities. They do offer a beautiful landscape 99% of the time. and does involve a lot of things to do, recreational, fun activities that you and the family should take advantage of. The one thing I will tell you about state parks is that they book up relatively quick. So for major holidays during the summertime, so your Memorial Day, 4th of July, and your Labor Day, you want to book a year out. And most weekends, I would suggest trying to book 6 to 8 months out. Once you start sitting down and putting together vacation time for the families, that'll help you out a tremendous amount as well. Now, that's the state parks. Let's dive a little bit into commercial parks, and we're going to take the next 15 minutes or so. Well, maybe not 15, maybe the next 5 or 6 minutes or so to talk about commercial camping. And that has a whole different perspective to it. We'll talk about that when we get to that. The one other thing I want to share about state parks do typically charge visitors for coming in. So if you have other people coming, they're going to charge you as much as 10 or 15 bucks to park in some places, and it could be more in others. Keep that in mind if you're talking about throwing a birthday party or something like that. It might be cheaper for you to get some type of pavilion and pay for mass parking if that's available. But anything else, like I said, you're going to pay for it, and just be wary of that. So let's get into the commercial side of camping. Commercial camping is by far the most user-friendly, because they're typically going to have interactive websites that give you real-time availability, especially with your KOAs and some of your Good Sam parks. They also are able to offer you space for something as large as 45 feet with absolutely no problem. A lot of times the campsites are offering pull-throughs, they're offering back ends, they're offering poolside, rustic. There's a lot of options that come with commercial campsites simply because they're able to construct that park, unlike a state park or a national park where nature constructed it and you were invited in. So with a commercial campground, you also have to understand that they are in it for the purpose of making money, unlike the state park or the national park, which may be a nonprofit type outfit. Commercial campgrounds are about one thing and one thing only, and that's that bottom line dollar. So with a commercial campground, you're going to get electric, water, and sewer 99% of the time, unless you get a tent site, which might only be electric. Some tent sites have electric and water, but most every other site is going to have electric, water, and sewer. Now, for those who still prefer to use cable services, a lot of them do offer that, but most people now stream, so they'll either hop on their Wi-Fi, bring Wi-Fi with them, and if you're like me, where you just don't feel like the headache, you'll stick up the old antenna and grab whatever local channels are over the air and enjoy TV that way. Commercial campgrounds will most likely 90% of the time have activities like a pool, volleyball. They're going to have some type of pickleball or playground for the kids. Those type of amenities pretty much are standard because that's their draw. People are coming there for vacation. People are coming there for some relaxation. So they offer those type of things when you come to see them. The one thing about commercial campgrounds you also have to remember is where there is commercial, there is rules. And where there are rules, it is driven by insurance. So you need to find out before you go whether you can take your golf cart, because a lot of them do not allow you to do that. You need to also find out whether they allow like electric bikes and things of that nature. If you're going to a commercial campground and it's by like a beach or something like that, you need to find out whether or not your dog is allowed to go on that beach. Sometimes dogs are not allowed to go during Memorial Day and Labor Day. I got lucky when we went to Pirate Land in October. We were able to take the dog on the beach because it was outside of that time frame, and she had a wonderful time. Now, another thing about commercial campgrounds is fires. Most commercial campgrounds, you can have a fire. Now, here's the deal. anytime you do have a fire at anybody's park, you want to get the wood from their state because you don't want to bring pests from your state. That is very, very, very important. The other thing that is important is you need to find out what that campground will allow based on like local ordinance. So some grounds will say that it has to be 6 inches off of the ground. It can only be but so wide, and the fire can only go but so high, whatever. Make sure that you know what they are. And if you can, buy the wood from them. That is a source of revenue for them, and it prevents issues as far as pests being brought into their state. If you live in the state and you're bringing wood from home, that's something different. But if you're crossing state lines, leave your wood home and buy wood from like a local store, 7-Eleven, Lowe's, something like that, or buy it from the campground directly. Now, the other thing that you need to consider with commercial campgrounds is they can take anything, meaning you don't know who your neighbors are going to be, and you need to be respectful of that. Some people are going to have tents, some are going to have travel trailers, some are going to have big fifth wheels, class A, B, and C motorhomes. You need to be conscious of what's around you. And the reason why I say this is because you need to have appropriate insurance in case something happens. Now, you should have insurance in national parks and in your state parks, but chances are there's going to be a wooded section between the two of you, so there's less likely for stuff to happen. Not so much in commercial campgrounds. You're going to be in close quarters. So if something from your campsite or your camper damages somebody else, you need to have vacation insurance and liability. And I would suggest having about $300,000. The average motorhome brand new and a diesel will run you anywhere between $250,000 to $350,000 on average. Therefore, you want to be able to protect yourself if something were to happen. Now, I do know of a dog that hit an emergency brake and a coach started rolling because they didn't have the jacks down, and it hit another unit. That was an easy $75,000 payout that their insurance company had to pay. So accidents happen, and you don't know who doesn't have insurance in the campground. So if somebody hits your stuff, you want to be able to at least get it repaired and repaired in a quick fashion. There's nothing worse than having an accident in a commercial campground. It's got to be towed out, and then they have your unit for 6 weeks. Insurance doesn't speed up that process, but at least you can pay for it, if you know what I mean. So because of the close proximity in commercial parks, definitely have adequate insurance. And the other thing that you need to do is make sure under every circumstance you are following the camp rules, no matter where you camp, but specifically in a commercial, because they will quickly put you out. Now, the difference between acting up in a commercial campground versus a national park or a state park is in a commercial campground, they're just going to ask you to leave and not give you your money back. In a national park or a state campground, they will arrest you because the warden has, not the warden, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, sometimes it is the game warden, but a lot of times it's the park ranger. They do carry handcuffs and a big gun. So they will arrest you depending on the severity of it, especially if you have an open container of alcohol. That's the quickest way to get locked up in a national or state park. Now, in a commercial campground, you might be able to walk around with it because those rules are a little looser. They may just tell you do not have it in a container that advertises what it is. Hint, hint. In other words, red Solo cup or some type of Yeti. Hint, hint. Anyway, same thing with the national park or a state park. It's just the difference between those two is if you get caught with it, they will crucify you. It's just what it is. Getting back to a commercial campground. Commercial campgrounds come in a bunch of varieties, whereas state parks and national parks pretty much are the same. The commercial campgrounds, you're going to have resorts like Disney's Fort Wilderness, where you're going to have a really, really large campground, many campsites, a lot of amenities, a lot of activities and things to do, usually food on the premises. And those type of resorts typically have a lot of dogs and golf carts. Keep in mind, they are also going to be in the neighborhood of $100 to $150 a night. Your regular, what I'm going to say, run of the, average camp commercial stuff that you're going to go to for like an amusement park or something like that. They're going to have all of that too, but they're going to be much smaller. They're going to be probably anywhere from like 10 to 30 acres, whereas somewhere like Fort Wilderness, I believe, is closer to 300 acres or something like that once you add the water and all that good stuff. Now, those are going to typically run you anywhere from about 70 to, I'm going to say $100, $110 a night. And they're going to have great amenities, but they're going to be located close to things that you want to do. They're not going to be one of those type of resorts where once you get there, you never have to leave. You may have to leave to do some things because typically that's why you're going. But nevertheless, you're not going to have like restaurants and things like that. So you may have to go out to eat if you don't bring it yourself. Whereas with a resort type commercial campground, they should have restaurant and eating abilities right there on site. Then there's your smaller parks where they are like mom and pop things, which basically offer you the basics. It's off the highway. They're going to offer you electric, water, sewer. They're going to have some pull-throughs. They might have a few back ends. But the bottom line is they want you to come, enjoy yourself for the night, and then get the heck out of Dodge as soon as you possibly can. They are not there for long-term stays if you don't really have to. There are other parks designed for that, but a lot of your smaller parks are literally for overnight stops, maybe a night or two to see somebody in the neighborhood, and then see you later. We'll catch you next time. Those type of parks, if you do need to stay for an extended period of time, you need to call ahead of time and let them know what you need to do. And then if they tell you that that's really not what they're designed for, make arrangements to go somewhere else. But that's what you have there. Now, commercial parks also are going to typically be able to cater to the local Chamber of Commerce in the sense that the restaurants, the facilities for recreation, amusement parks, things like that, they're going to be able to either get you there, show you how to get there, or make accommodations for you to enjoy those things while you are staying there. Take advantage of that. A lot of them offer shuttles. Like if you stay at the KOA down by King's Dominion, you can get a shuttle to King's Dominion without having to move your car. They'll do things like that. Also, keep in mind, a lot of commercial campgrounds are by railroad tracks. If you are one of those people that have a wife or a husband that can't sleep with that train blowing, you want to call ahead of time and find out how often that train runs and how close you're going to be to those train tracks. That happens to be one of the things that we notice a lot with commercial campgrounds. Lastly, this is very, very important. Know how much your deposit is and what you owe when you get to these commercial campgrounds. Now, state parks and national parks collect all their money up front, you're good. But a lot of times with your commercial campgrounds, they'll take a deposit. But you got to know if the rate changes or anything like that during your stay, know how much you need to cover before you get there. And if you can, cover it before. Just call them, hey, look, here's my credit card, I'm paying you, because you don't want to run into a situation where you don't have the cash for that commercial park and you stay that one night and got to find somewhere the next night. Like, that's not cool. You don't want to do that. I watched somebody go through that, and though it was hilarious because of their situation, I felt sorry for them because, they ended up boondocking like another 7 nights down in Florida. And if you've been down there in the middle of September, it gets hot. So that is the difference between the three: state parks, national parks, and commercial campgrounds. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'll be more than happy to give you an explanation, but this is more of a beginner's guide to what they offer, what to look for in those parks, and, have fun when you're out there. Just remember, always be respectful, and if you don't know, ask somebody. They'll be more than happy to help you out and tell you what you need to know. With that being said, happy camping, y'all, 2025. This is Crazy Keon, the Crazy Camper, and I will see you when I see you. We outta here.
Be sure to join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and you can always catch us on Facebook and YouTube. Hanging with the Hazes.